that you come for you this morning. We thank you for the gift of life, for the gift of a good morning that you have blessed us with. As we are going to start this session, oh Lord, may you start with us and then with us, and may we benefit from it. And at the end, all glory and honor shall be unto your name. We pray, thanking you for this. For I pray this prayer, trusting and believing in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. So, welcome everyone. To start us off, we have our executive director with us, Mr. C.S. Godwin Simba. I can give him a chance to introduce himself. So is our managing director, is our executive director.
Confirm you can hear me, Collins?
Yes, we can hear clearly.
All right, thank you, and good morning, everyone, from wherever you are. We want to welcome all of us to this webinar, which is discussing cybersecurity issues in the Sacco sector. It's our pleasure to have all of us on board this morning, just to delve into this. I would say an emerging issue within both the financial services spectrum. I think it's come at a timely manner because we are increasingly being faced with technological advancements, either be it in the operational area or our product offering within the SACCOs. And as we strive to automate as a sector, I think it's very paramount for us to be aware of the concerns that the technology may bring. And it's so importantly because I guess for our sector, the critical issue is safeguarding members' funds. And I think when money moves through the networks or technology, it means then we have to be much more secured. Allow me to, as I welcome all of us, is just to introduce the business that is Finet. So Finet is a governance consulting and a training company that leverages on its expertise in the pension and also insurance solutions. And we are heavily in providing strategic advice to most organizations and SACCOs included. We also provide innovative technology as well as also solutions that can scale businesses to the next level within the financial services space. We run the training programs through the Finet Institute, and I think most of us may have come across one of the premier training institutions in Kenya and also East Africa that does governance and management programs for public and private institutions, but most importantly, also trying to scale up conversations on governance. So in a nutshell, when it comes to our product dashboard, our primary product structure is actually governance, board evaluations. We do strategic plans, we do policy development, and also we help organizations scale in terms of their management systems. We are also heavy in technology. We train board members, we train members of the SACCOs. We also on financial planning. We train delegates. We do strategy for the management and also for the board members, and also largely the corporate governance framework. We also are keen in technology. We do risk and governance, governance solutions for business integration, payment integration, and also we do data share solutions or cloud support services. Where we also come in handy, especially for financial institutions like yours as well, will be to engage in terms of employee benefits and risk solutions. Through our insurance brokerage, we are able to structure products for SACCOs in terms of either group life, medical, and also if you are having a pension scheme, then how do you educate your members on annuities, income drawdown, and also the GPA, as well as also the credit life, which is normally the one that guarantees or loan safeguards for your members. So we come in, provide solutions or different platforms for yourselves in terms of the providers, and then we intermediate on those products. And also importantly, critically, this morning we'll also be talking about the cyber security insurance, which I know it's also a critical component or a safeguard for cybersecurity threats that you are likely to face as an institution. And we'll be happy to partner and also engage with yourselves on any opportunity that may come into play in terms of our product offerings. So of course, we have a mission, vision as an organization. We want to provide best advice and future thinking in the financial services. We try to look at what are the emerging issues that may affect our businesses and try to create solutions to make a better tomorrow today. So largely, I think in terms of the business, I run with the business as the managing director and also the executive director of Finet. But most importantly, today we are joined by our esteemed professionals in cybersecurity to discuss with us critical areas that may affect you as a Sacco. And with us, we have, we'll be having we'll be having Michael Juma, a cybersecurity and infrastructure solution expert. Is largely he's been in cyber strategy and architecture for a while, and is currently at M-Pesa Africa, which operates in Tanzania, Mozambique, Lesotho, Ghana, DRC, and Ethiopia. And I think being in the core of financial solutions and also money transactions, I guess is a much more even better place to engage on that area. We also have with us today Wilson Gitau. Wilson Gitau is also in cybersecurity space and is a diligent cybersecurity enthusiast. Sorry. Yeah, and is passionate about information technology and how to integrate day-to-day issues of technology, and is largely also in charge of cybersecurity, governance, and risk compliance at M-Pesa Africa. So just to also introduce to us, we have a gentleman from it's called John Gangla. Is also a cyber security solution expert in terms of insurance, who will also be taking us through the session this morning. And we also have a general manager with us, Samuel Nondo, who will also be engaging with us as we engage. So we have lined up a panel of individuals to bring to us what is the latest in the cybersecurity space, what solutions and what are the threats that you are likely to face as an institution. And we look forward to having a fruitful discussion in the next an hour or so. And if you have any Q&A, we'll be happy to take it up. And I thank you so much and welcome you to this webinar. Over to you, Collins, as we have the first speaker coming on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simba, for that introduction. So we'll just go straight to the first speaker today. So I'll hand over to Mr. Juma, if he's ready, and to Wilson also Gitau. So we can start with Michael. Michael, are you ready?
Yes, in room I'm with Michael Juma. We'll be going through this presentation together, and we hope that you guys will enjoy and take the message home. Let me air my presentation.
Yes, you can see it.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
This morning we will dissect the topic on the threats that are facing financial institutions. I and Juma here, we are in the same sector, having worked in a telecommunication company, and now supporting financial institution across different markets in Africa. So when we talk of cybersecurity threats, what do we think of? Going to my first slide. Okay. Thank you. So cybersecurity is no longer just an IT issue as traditionally known. In the traditional setup, we used to think that cybersecurity will just affect the IT infrastructure. But currently, in the current environment, we see that cyber attack will rampantly affect the whole business operation. It might bring down business operations as currently most of the business operations are IT supported. So on my right, you can see the business business transformation agenda that we normally discuss in technology. That is through people, technology, and processes. So cybersecurity also should be addressed from this perspective. We should address cybersecurity from a people security, technology security. This is ensuring that the technological controls that we are putting are secure by design, and also applying security from a process perspective. This is ensuring that we have the right security policies. And when we consolidate these, as we transform the business technologically, we will also transform the business in terms of cybersecurity. That is ensuring that we have security in design. Here I might think this might be a hacker who is just telling us that some of us learn the cyber lessons the hard way, but it's none of their business. So for them, it's just to learn the technology and know how to use the backdoor. And that is why we should have this discussion this morning. Going to the statistics, globally, we can see that in just 1 minute, in the internet, we lose approximately $2.9 million to cybercrimes. And this is a report that, these are statistics that we have got from a report from Risk IQ, showing us the annual evil internet per minute loss. Coming closer home, that is Africa, where the Africa's GDP globally is at 3%. We might see that as a small percentage, but in terms of cost, that translates to $3.3 trillion. And into these $3.5 billion, we lose $3.5 to cybercrimes. And largely, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, they record the largest losses. So if you divide that by 3.5, approximately $1.something billion lost in Kenya in terms of cybercrime. Coming now closer home to our financial institutions, we would want to see why is cybersecurity important in our institutions. So hackers are day to day, they are motivated by the money that they will get from a hack, and more so. And speaking of money, in Saccos, we can see the stats from a point of what Saccos are taking in terms of savings and deposits. An estimate of over $7 billion. Moving to the trends in the asset base that we have, Saccos have invested in a lot of assets, IT assets, and the current stats show that the assets that Saccos have in their IT infrastructure cost around $10 billion. And now this shows that we have increased the surface of attack since we are solely dependent on IT infrastructure. When we come to see the stats around people, we can see that Saccos are supporting over 500,000 Kenyans, and keeping in mind that humans are the weakest links of security. So having people operate these organizations and also steer the IT infrastructure, we are still faced by that risk. If we go to the last point there, we can see the growth rate of the total assets owned by Saccos. The rise from 2016 to 2023, you can see from 393.5 billion to 700.3 billion of investment. So that shows a 77.9% growth, and thus increasing the surface of attack. When we had a very small number of automated infrastructure in the financial sector, we had a smaller surface of attack. Now we have a big surface of attack, and this number is going up as most of the institutions are continuing to automate and to embrace IT. So from this session today, the key objectives today, we want people to understand what is cybersecurity, also familiarize with the current state and the current kinds of threats that we have or that are facing us, and also understand the best practices that they can put to protect their organizations. I think my Mike will take the next 2 slides also.
Thank you, Wilson. Yeah, I was looking. I was looking at the stats presented by my colleague here, and Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa are the ones losing a lot of money under cybercrime, and that made me understand why a while back when you were in Tanzania, people there mentioned that they don't like, not like in a bad way, but they don't like Kenyans, Nigerians, and South Africans. So maybe it's because of that prevalence of cyber crimes. Yeah. So just to bring it home, let's look at what really is the goal of cybersecurity. We have 3 main goals, which are referred to as the CIA triangle for cybersecurity. The C stands for confidentiality, and this is one of the key skills to ensure that information is mainly accessed by those who are authorized. If you want to bring this closer to people, I don't know how many of us want to share their phone pins with their friends, with their spouses, for instance. You realize very few people want to do that, and it's because of the information. So that is an example of the confidentiality aspect of cybersecurity, making sure that information is only accessed by people who are authorized. This is actually a driver for many of the regulations around privacy. So there is GDPR, there is the Privacy Act in Kenya. So this is just to the main driver to ensure that data is kept very confidential. The other aspect of cybersecurity is integrity, making sure that data remains authentic and accurate. Most of us do check our bank balance every now and then. It's always important to ensure that if I check my balance now, if I check it tomorrow, if I didn't do any withdrawal, that balance remains as authentic or accurate as it should be. So that is under integrity, ensuring that data cannot be modified by unauthorized personnel. There's the other aspect, which is on availability. So this is to make sure that an information system or a resource is always available when needed. Bring it back home. Let's talk about KPLC. Last week we had a countrywide outage. So that is an example of how availability affects our day-to-day operation. Also, let's bring it closer when M-Pesa is not available. That is one aspect that cybersecurity looks to always mitigate and ensure that there is always those services to the user when they are needed. So the key risks or threats that we'll be discussing today are those for there. So the risks associated with remote access. This is a common phenomenon now, brought mainly because of COVID, and it has stayed with us even after COVID has been eliminated or contained from the global space. We'll also be discussing threats that target human beings, the people, and this is phishing and social engineering. We'll also be discussing insider threats, and also we'll be discussing system misconfigurations. Yeah. Later on, we also look at the mitigating controls for these threats, and also look at cyber insurance as a way of mitigating these threats, since one of the ways you can mitigate a cyber risk is to transfer the risk. So, and that's where insurance will come into play for these particular ways of addressing the risks. So we'll start with the insider threats. This is what people say it's the enemy within, or what Wahenga would say, Kulacho King when Mwako, but move to Swahili. This is someone who's either an employee or a contractor that has access to your information systems, and either willingly or unwillingly, accidentally, they do cause harm to the organization. Yeah. So there are several types. One of them is unintentional. So this is accidental, and under that we have two types. So that is coming under negligence. So we have people, basically they know that you're supposed to obey certain security rules, but they don't. They choose not to, out of negligence. For instance, most of us do get pop-ups to apply patches or updates, but normally what we do, we postpone, and that might end up resulting into cyber threats from an insider point of view. There are others that come in from an accidental point of view. In this case, maybe you're sending an email, but by accident you type a wrong email, and you end up sending information that where it was not intended to. Of course, there is now the intentional, which of course you really want to do it. It's not accidental. So you're either partnering with someone outside or doing it on your own to make sure you leak information, for example, either financial benefits or out of revenge. There are examples there. Whether it can be espionage. You leak secrets to an enemy country, or corruption. You might be having inside information that you were able to work with a supplier and cause corrupt financial benefits, and you could degrade resources intentionally. Just to bring it to a more practical look, in 2010, I think most of us know the story of Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. So this guy published over 750,000 records from the US Army. And these records were leaked by a US intelligence analyst by the name Chelsea Manning. And she was later sentenced to 35 years in prison, but later a sentence was commuted by President Obama. Now you can imagine this is a this is an analyst from the US intelligence, and she's leaking information outside. A huge number, 750,000. So this tells us the magnitude of what insider threats can do, and it's probably one of the hardest cyber threats to contain. So this, of course, this record involved records about the war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and they were classified information. So that was just to give you a real life example of how insider threats do happen. So how do we detect them? How do we what are the indicators for insider threats? It's always good to be on the lookout for negative commentary about the organization. Sometimes it's normal to comment probably something negative, something that is not going well in the organization from a democratic point of view. But when that becomes excess, then it becomes a red flag. Maybe someone's planning something bad about the organization. We're living in an age where there's a lot of mental health issues, which we should support ourselves. And sometimes those can be contributions to someone acting maliciously, of course, not intentionally. And we've even seen that happening even from a physical security point of view, where we've seen even cops shoot each other. And then TRS find it was a case of mental health. So it's good to check on colleagues if there's any change of mental state to avoid, either to help them and also to avoid any threats that would add to the organization. We could also probably look at unusual working hours without authorization. We can also look at someone's behavior in terms of substance abuse. Maybe they're going through something, so their behavior is not really sober. That could also contribute to, could be an indicator that something is not okay, and they could be planning something wrong. You also need to look at behaviors from a technical point of view. Like if you see someone or you detect someone copying huge amounts of data, then that could be a potential indicator of insider threat. Yeah. So there are various effects that would come with that. An example would be data leakage, and some could even delete data. And if you don't have backup, then it will mean the organization will go to a standstill. There are various ways we could prevent insider threats. We just listed a few here, so the exhaustive list. One of them is very key to train employees. You might say the thing that the employees are the weakest link when it comes to cyber. So we need to train them just to make sure they can be able to detect any social engineering attacks, so that they don't click on links any other time, and also provide a mechanism for employees to report any risky or suspicious behavior. Need to coordinate HR activities with IT, and these could include things like layoff. People become disgruntled when they're laid off, when they miss a salary increment, when they miss a promotion, and those are natural human reactions. But as organizations, we need to prepare for such. Yeah, and so HR needs to coordinate with IT security. For instance, if you do suspect that the divorce between an employee and the organization is going to be messy and having casualties, then in this case, you may need to probably disable the account as soon as possible to avoid any threats. You need to employ multi-person control mechanisms for sensitive activities, and this is very common in finance, so that one person cannot approve a huge amount of money, for instance. Yeah, so that more than one person, maybe one person can initiate, then another person can complete an activity. We also need to build threat hunting teams. So this is just to work on data. This being an age of of analytics and business intelligence and artificial intelligence, we use such kind of data to be able to detect potential insider threats. We need to also have policies in place. For instance, when you're onboarding an employee, we need to do a risk assessment just to make sure that there's no previous record that indicates this person has engaged in malicious activities. So it's always important to do that risk assessment before onboarding or during onboarding. Yeah. We also need to deploy technical security controls, for instance, DLP, to just make sure data is protected from leaking. We need to have in place monitoring. This is SIM, or what many people call the Sacco, so that you can detect events in real time and act on them. One of the other aspects that you need to be controlled is on privileged accounts. So when we do have admins that are performing activities on systems, how do we control their access? We have technical controls around that. PAM, the Privileged Access Management Solutions, that will make sure that administrator activities are controlled, they are logged, and they can be audited and used for investigations if need be. Yeah. Obviously, we need anti-malware tools on our endpoints. And like I mentioned, these are not the only tools. They're the only controls that need to be in place. There are others, for example, ensuring that you're running on the most updated software to avoid any exploitation of vulnerability on your laptops or devices. See a hand, I'm not sure that moving on. We look at the other threat, which is security misconfiguration. So this one is actually ranking now on OWASP top 10 is number 5 from the 2021 listing. And according to OWASP, there's always 90% of applications that at least have been tested and they are confirmed to have application misconfiguration. So what this means is you've used a system and you've configured or left it insecure, so that someone, so that it's putting your system or information at risk. So this is just because of lack of proper security configurations. Yeah. We wonder why did they happen then. One of the reasons people do give, or what's common, is that most infrastructure networks are very complex. And so if you have someone looking at the network, which means there's a high chance that they will miss out on something. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why there's a chance that there will be a security misconfiguration left in one of the systems. And the other reason is the businesses and technology evolving into a DevOps model, and there's always a continuous, constant changes, technical changes to meet business needs. So if the cyber team, for instance, or the technical teams are not well resourced, either from a personnel point of view or from a technology point of view, then they're not able to match the speed at which the business is releasing products to customers. And so they would accidentally end up not putting the best configuration in place. Others will come from day-to-day operations. For instance, if there's an incident and there's an admin troubleshooting, they would probably lessen the cyber controls during the troubleshooting, and then afterwards forget to revert. Yeah. Sometimes we also bypass our own controls. You want to do something, you want to install a software, then antivirus says no, this is not allowed. But most of the things that we do is to say bypass, then that gives you exposure. Yeah. So a real life example, in 2019, NASA had its data leak because of a misconfiguration in Jira. So We can imagine NASA is an organization taking people to space. And what would be worse if this was happening on a space shuttle, for instance, and you're up there and there's a cyber attack on it. Yeah. So these are real life example of how it happens. It happened, and there are many other examples, including the Mirai botnet attack, which was also as a result of a misconfiguration. Yeah. So if we look at examples in our day-to-day, we have default passwords. This comes when we're setting up systems. As always, it always comes with a default password, either it's password 01 or it's an empty password. We're expected to change that password after setting our system, but we end up not doing that, either intentionally or unintentional. And then we use the default passwords, exposing us to the risk of being affected. We do also use deprecated protocols. So in your configuration, for instance, you end up using, let's say, SSL version 1 for encryption instead of using TLS 1.2 or 1.3. So that exposes you to data breach if someone can intercept your traffic. We do use open database instances, which means you can connect without authentication. And another example is directory listing. In our development, we also have error messages that tells the attacker more about our system. So if we do not disable those error messages, then you're exposing to the attacker more information about our system and giving them a chance to attack us. It also extends to the cloud. If you're using cloud instance, whether it's AWS, and your wrong misconfiguration, since for instance, you don't require MFA, someone can easily go there and use your resources. And then you end up paying more from a financial point of view based on the usage. Yeah. We also do have unnecessary features that are left open, either pods or pages. One of the best practices in cyber is to just disable any unused services. Yeah. And also in coding, we do have poor coding practices. This could be something like not validating your input. Yeah. So how do we prevent then this misconfiguration? So one of the major challenges, like I mentioned, is having a complex infrastructure. We cannot keep pace doing it manually. So what we need is to have an automated hardening process that's repeatable and also fast to deploy. So that way we enable IT and security teams to harden the system, but also enable the business to roll out products as fast as they can to the customers. We need to have periodic audits and just to make sure that our systems remain secure. Security is not a one-time activity. It's supposed to be continuous. So whether you want to run your scans daily, weekly, that should be informed by your organizational policy, but you need to have periodic scans just to be able to detect any deviation from standard. We need to ensure that our development life cycle is well structured, just to make sure that security is part of the development and testing is done on our applications so that we can be able to detect any misconfiguration before a product is moved from development to live. Yeah. Again, training is key for employees, just on the importance of configuration and how that would affect the organization security. Yeah. In case of a breach, if your data is encrypted, then that would be a secondary control. Yeah. So we always need to encrypt our data at rest and also in transit. Yeah. Always use the principle of least privilege. Yeah. And always run up-to-date softwares. So that's it on this configuration. Moving into the next slide. Colleague Wilson will continue.
Okay, I take the next slide, but just to reiterate that that security is is not an IT issue, it's a business risk, and we talked about how people, technology, and processes can contribute to this. Like in I think my colleague here used examples from the US, but bringing it home, put it a scenario where your core banking system or your application that communicates to the core banking system is misconfigured. Probably it might be a human error during misconfiguration, or it can be a lack of a process or a standard that is required to guide the developer. Maybe they don't know about the right secure coding practices, or you don't have good standards in terms of probably let's talk of password policies, etc. And also now the technology. If you don't have the right technology, probably in ensuring that you do the right penetration tests, you configure the applications well, etc. So it's an effort that needs to come from people, the technological controls, and the process and the policy makers. Moving to the next threat, I would want us to talk about remote access. So traditionally, banks didn't allow their employees to access their work environments remotely. Mostly when somebody leaves the office at 5, they will probably access office resources the next day they are in the office. But that changed, I think, since 2020. Most of us have embraced working from home and teleworking from any point to the, I think, the COVID thing. Let me say that this has eased a lot of things business-wise, but it has also come in its own business risks. So at first, what I think of when we talk of remote access, when I let in my organization, when we let people go out and access our resources remotely, we give them the machines. I give the staff the machine to go home, and they can access the network from home. So what have I done? I have just opened the gates. I have given away the machine. I don't have any physical control around that machine. So anything can, I've just opened the door anyway. So what can we say, or what can we do when we open the door? We just need to go back to people, process, and technology. We need to bring in the right controls around people. You need to do a lot of security awareness alongside that. When you go to policies, you need to ensure that you put in the right processes just to govern the usage of that machine that is out there, and the right policy of accessing the office remotely. Moving on to technological control, we need to implement the right VPN solutions that will access our internal network securely. We also need to ensure that by the virtue of giving that machine out and it can be able to access our network, we need to ensure that we can manage that machine out there remotely. We can push updates, we can push patches to that machine remotely. We also need to ensure that that device that we let out, that unwanted applications are not installed. So we need also to bring in things like anti-malware tools, etc. A common thing that I have seen happen there is most people are restricting the usage of USB ports, the drives, etc. Moving to the processes, we also need to ensure that our remote access solutions have the right policies, probably before they onboard, probably before you are permitted to access the resource. The VPN resource, the VPN will probe you against some security policies, probably checking, do you have the right anti-malware tool? Is this the right user? Is this machine blocked in terms of ports? Does this machine have unwanted softwares, etc. And lastly, what I would recommend is that we should implement a transaction audit log. So, but this actually, it's something that we can normally use at the end of an event, since an audit log will only be recorded after an event has happened. Moving on to the next business risk. Our businesses face the risk of phishing and social engineering. Also, I don't know whether you have noted, all these risks are mostly around the human nature. So phishing and social engineering is an attack related to, they are both related, since they both target humans, and they lure humans, convincing them to take a particular action, probably to click a certain link or to give certain sensitive information, etc. On my left bottom, you can see the statistics for phishing in Q1 2022. So the financial sector has the highest percentage. This meaning that hackers are targeting where we have money, where they will get results as fast as they can, and that is the financial sector. What can we do about phishing? Since it is a human-related attack, we just need to ensure that we have the right trainings to our staff, and we need to do security tests around this, maybe phishing campaigns, etc. Good follow-ups to see whether our staff understand the different phishing metrics or the phishing routes. Also, we can bring in technology controls, that is probably by blocking suspected phishing emails, and also implementing spam filters. Moving on to the next slide. Here we have a slide talking about partnership areas, and these are the areas where we could partner so that we can better the security posture in your organizations. So one is on cybersecurity maturity assessments. So what does a cybersecurity maturity assessment aim to achieve? So this aims to review your security controls against the global security best practices that might be NIST, ISO 27001, etc. And against these, we can be able to rate an organization from a certain metric, maybe from a metric of 1 to 5, 5 being the best of that. And from this, it can be able to tell us that in our organization, this is where we probably have a gap, and these are the security controls that we should implement. Number 2 is on data privacy impact assessment. As you all know, we have the 2019 Data Protection Act in place, and by the look of things, it is giving the data owners, the data subjects, a lot of, I would say they are much privileged, and they have more control on their data. So it has hefty penalties to the organizations that will be breaching the use of PII. And all the threats that we have discussed today, all of them can lead to data leakage, all the way from insider threats. An insider can leak information from the organization. Phishing can lead to the same. A security misconfiguration can lead to data leakage, etc. The third one is on system security testing. This is where we do security testing, technical security testing in terms of penetration testing. So we penetrate through the systems just to check whether we have open vulnerabilities, and in case we recommend or help the organization to put in the right security controls. Number 4 is on security audits. I think these are audits mandated by the organization's board, but most organizations don't wait to reach at this point. They get that service before we get to the audits. Number 5 is on security controls implementation. These are the technological controls that we talked of. We talked of things like implementation of anti-malware tools, mobile device management tools, remote access solutions, etc. And lastly, on security awareness trainings. So as we have seen, humans are still the weakest links of security. So bringing in this service gives a plus to the organization, and also as a plus for this, we also measure the human understanding on security, and from there we can be able to give the right security training. I think that is all from our side. I don't know whether we would want to move to questions, or we first have the discussion around cybersecurity insurance.
Thank you so much, Michael and Wilson, for that. So I think we can first go to the question and answers. If anyone has a question, they could ask before we move on, because we have another speaker on that is coming up, Mr. John, who will also be taking us through the insurance, the cyber and security insurance, just to add on what we'll be saying. So if anyone has a question, the chat box is also open for any questions. So maybe we can have some questions before we move on. But in the meantime, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think what you have learned is that so far, the Sacco sector that is having a growth in the savings from the previous increase over 30%, as you said, there's a really great need for this insurance sector. So for around, you said 500,000 Kenyans have been able to increase their access to Saccos, with 1.5 million Kenyans having direct access to them. So that is a growth of, you said 7.977%, that's around 78%. So for the Sacco sector, I think this is a great important training for them. So maybe one of the questions that has been raised is that which are some of the best antivirus programs for the Saccos? So that is a question from Peter Gadiru. So any other questions? Maybe you can answer that in the meantime.
Okay. So that I don't appear to market a particular technology. I mentioned examples, of course, but not in preference. This is best informed by what we've tested and also based on Gartner ranking, because we do use also Gartner ranking in terms of evaluating our antivirus or any other solution. Yeah. So there are a number of antivirus solutions you can use. There is Kaspersky. You can use Kaspersky, it's very common. There is Symantec, there is McAfee, there's Trend Micro, there's Sophos, and also Microsoft is now catching up with its Defender for endpoint. Yeah. So those are a number of antivirus you can use. The best approach is to write down a requirement, then you conduct a proof of concept. But at least those are the ones you can use for now. If need be, we can share with you that at least.
Yeah, that's well noted. I don't know whether Peter is satisfied, but that is a well answered question. So maybe any other questions before we move on?
There's a question
Okay.
to the presenter. This on the legal part of it. How does the Data Protection Act of 2019 affect the entire operations for data management, transfer, storage, and the operations for Saccos?
Okay, I think I'll take up that one. So the data protection law, it talks of it is very simple. It has three people, it has three entities. One, it has the data subject, that is the owner of the data, that is your customer. And number two, it has the data controller, that might be the Sacco. Number three, it has the data processor. The data processor can be the Sacco or anybody else whom, probably the person who gives you the core banking, if the core banking is not yours. So one, it mandates the controller and the processor to process the data in a manner that, to consume the data in a manner that the owner or the data subject knows about. So one, they will tell you to ask consent from the data subject for any usage, for any kind or any way that you may want to use the data. If I want to use the data to do a certain campaign, probably I want to profile my customers and I want to push marketing messages to them. Before I take that data from them and do that, I need to make them understand that this is how I will use the data. And it tells you not to use the data. It tells you not to use the data in any other way than what the data subject consent to. It is very silent on how you host the data or where you host the data or how you store the data. It just talks on how you use the data. I don't know whether that is sufficient.
So Samuel, I don't know, has your question been answered? It is a sufficient answer.
That is well taken care of. Thank you.
We have a hand raised from Lois Gitonga. Lois?
Okay, my question is, so most of the financial institutions are going for managed services solutions to enhance their cybersecurity, whereby some install collectors internally, and so to monitor traffic. So apart from the SLA, so how do we ensure that these tools that are put in place that as in just to ensure that we have security, even though we are outsourcing these services to third-party vendors to ensure our security is robust? Thank you.
Okay. So one of the things that I've learned is that even though we would be outsourcing, and that's a common practice, we can never be completely hands-off. So the things that we need to do, one, we need to have policies and standards, because a technical control comes in to enforce the standard that you've created. So when you bring in the managed service provider, they come to enforce a standard that you've defined. So we need to have a defined technical standard to be implemented. That's one. And two, you need to have continuous testing or assessment to check whether the tools that have been put in place by your managed security services partner are actually meeting your requirements. So this could be through an audit, either internally or an external auditor, just to assess and give you assurance that what has been implemented is meeting the standards, either those set internally or those required by the regulator.
So Lois, I don't know whether your question has been answered.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, welcome. So I don't know, Peter, do you have a question? I see your hand raised. Okay, it seems like the question Peter asked earlier has been answered. So moving forward, I'll just introduce a colleague of mine. So we have Samuel Nondo in the meeting. So I'll introduce him to introduce us the person in charge of insurance. Will take us through the insurance side. So maybe before you leave, Michael, and do you have any other additional stuff before I invite Samuel and to take us through?
Peter had this question in chat.
Okay.
So he's asking how to ensure that the data is protected when they request for support via remote access. So then there are various ways we can protect data, of course, when accessed via remote access. It starts from how we do our authentication. It has to start from strong authentication. It has to start from 2FA, from the point of authentication. That's one. It has to be accessed through secure protocols. If it has to be accessed through either an IPsec tunnel or either TLS, so it can be both at application layer or at layer 3, so protected protocols. And the other thing you can do is you can limit what your outsourced support team has access to. For instance, you don't have to allow access to everything. There are now solutions based on zero trust, where you only allow access to a particular system. So say, for example, if it's one server that has an issue, in your remote access setup, you only allow that access to that particular server. The other thing you can do is to ensure you have dynamic or temporal access. If you're giving access to a remote support team, you have to make sure that that access is only used when needed, so that it can be revoked if the issue has been resolved and it doesn't remain there persistently to be abused later. You also need to have monitoring in place so that you are able to detect or monitor what your remote support team is doing, and this is where SOC comes into place. Yeah, and EDR is an endpoint detection and response system to detect if there's any malicious activity being done on the server by your remote access, remote support team. I hope you've been answered.
Okay, I think he has confirmed. We have another question here from John. What is the costing for running a SOC? Should one need the service as a preventive measure, I would think, and how much would it cost for a cyber assessment, vulnerability, and penetration testing? Can one gain complete cyber resilience? On completeness, I would say that cyber is, we can't say 100%, but you can implement controls that are sufficient. But I would say that cyber, it's a periodic thing. It's a security hygiene that needs to be done periodically. On costing of a SOC, this would solely depend on a person costing, understanding the environment, on what is being monitored or what is being tested in terms of penetration testing, what is being tested. Costing is always advised by the scope.
So maybe to add on that, while we cannot give comprehensive answer here on the costing, we would be happy to engage and do an assessment, because if you look at penetration testing, for instance, people need to know how many applications they are assessing. Then after a scope assessment, then we can have a cost tied to it, and that applies to the other controls that you've asked about.
Okay, I think the time is not on our side, but if you have any questions, I think the chat box is open. We can write our questions at the chat box, so that by the end of towards the end of the discussion, we can have answers, the questions being answered. So moving forward, the questions can come through, but let me just introduce my colleague, Samuel Nondo. He's our General Manager of Finite Insurance Agency. I'll give him a chance to introduce our speaker, our next speaker, that is Mr. John Gangla. So Mr. Gangla is actually is the Associate General Manager at Minet. So he has specialized in around more than 15 years in the industry, both in the brokerage and the insurance sector. So he'll take us through, but first let me introduce Samuel to introduce him. So welcome, Samuel.
Thank you, Collins. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're keeping well and keeping also track of time. My name is Samuel Nondo, the GM for Finite Insurance Agency. I believe we've learned on the cyber risks, areas that we need to take care of, the measures need to put in place, and the operations of the data. We might put all the measures in place, but sometimes there are those kind of services comes on board. We product set in place to ensure such kind of risk are well taken care of. We check on the policies set in place, the third-party arrangements to ensure that the products are well captured to ensure your business continuity is still in place. Your reputational risk is well taken care of in terms of such kind of challenges. The insurance is in place to take care of that. Allow me to introduce one of our key speakers, Mr. John Gangla, who has numerous experience in the industry in specializing in structured products and also seeing corporates growing together. We share the same interest in the business of insurance, and thus we invited him to also share insights on the matters of insurance. Welcome, John Gangla, and please pick forth from here. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? It's always good to test whether you are audible.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes,
well.
we can hear you.
Thank you. I think the two gentlemen that have come ahead of me, they have done a wonderful presentation. I think they've done justice to cybersecurity. As I try to share my screen, maybe just one or two comments. In cybersecurity, as they have done justice, one of the biggest challenges that we do have with cybersecurity is a case where it is not very easy in the local market, and I'm sure even the people who are, is my screen on? Can somebody confirm?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So what I was saying is that in cybersecurity, it's an emerging risk. Much as it's an emerging risk to entities, and also the practitioners in the cybersecurity space, where the cyber situation changes on a daily basis. Solutions that are there today or that were there yesterday and they can confirm would not be able to be there tomorrow. The easiest way we explain cybersecurity is as we protect our properties, we put walls around our homes and so on. Thieves are continuously thinking of ways of how they can be able to beat that security. So what happens is the cybersecurity people are on the move. We as insurance practitioners are also on the move, in the sense that the policy that we have today, the insurance policy that we have today, might very well just be a policy that is relevant in a matter of a week or so. So it's an area where it requires a lot of interaction with the cyber security specialists, as well as the cyber insurance practitioner. Maybe one of the things that I normally say as I start off my presentation, there are two simple ways of explaining cybersecurity, and also a simple way, sort of there are two ways, one of explaining cybersecurity and one of explaining insurance. Now, the cybersecurity, the way you explain it is very simple. If you have a motor vehicle, all of us are aware, have vehicles or the interactive vehicles. So if you have a motor vehicle and you want to insure it, the insurance company will ask you whether the vehicle is in a sound mechanical state. The only way for that to be done is that they get an assessor to go and have a look at the vehicle, give an assessment report, on the basis of which now then the insurance company can tell you who will be able to insure this vehicle. And I guess that is the role the two gentlemen are playing, if you want to put it in a much better way. Then now, the fact that the vehicle has been assessed and has been given a clean bill of health from a mechanical point of view does not mean that the entire risk has been taken out of the vehicle. The vehicle will still be on the road. It can cause an accident. The insurers now come in once the assessment has been done to take the residual risk that is there in the cyber. So in the context of the cyber security experts will do all that they'll do. They can even provide you with a SOC, monitoring of attacks that are being deployed. But at the end of the day, a couple of them might go through, and if they go through, the insurance company will pick the risks. So that, in a simple way, is how I can explain that. Then to explain cybersecurity onto our lives on a daily basis, it's very simple. You get a situation where, for instance, assuming you have somebody working for you, that does for you some contract work, then you tell the person, gentlemen, I'll pay you in the afternoon. Then there's expectation from both sides. There's expectation from you that you need to send money to the person who worked for you, and there's expectation from the person who rendered the services to receive some money. So in the process, you get a text an SMS. And the easiest way it comes is Tuma kwa hii number. What would come to your mind is that possibly this gentleman may have Lisa in his account, or he doesn't want to use this line or uses another line. And in a number of cases, people send money to the wrong number. So within the cyber language, that is what is called man in the middle. So you are here on one end, the other person is on the other end, and then somebody comes in between, then influences your decision. Then after influencing your decision, you send money to a wrong number. Let me bring it home to a practical situation for a Sacco. Assuming a Sacco, somebody has applied for a loan in a Sacco. Then there's correspondence between the person who has applied for a loan and Sacco. What normally happens is the hackers would get into the system, at the back of the system, then they are able to monitor all the activities that are happening, including even passwords. They can be able to see the key and get the password. So what they'll do, there'll be communication. For instance, I'm the accountant, I want to send money to somebody. I send an email to him. We are processing your transfer. We should be able to send the money to the bank within the next 1 hour or so. The hackers would see that communication. So what they would do is a very simple thing. Assuming the account where the money is supposed to go to is Barclays Bank, possibly they open an account. Or once they've opened an account, what they do, they intercept the email. So assuming the email was reading Samuel at finet.co.ke. So what they'll do, Samuel at finetbank.co.ke, the A that is in the bank, A you can write with a projection at the top, or with a flat one without a projection. So if the genuine one has a longer projection, then they create an email without that projection. So to a casual person, when you look at that email, it's very difficult to do an analysis of the email to find out whether it's the same email. You just look at it and say, oh, this is Samuel at finet.bank and so on. Then they'll write to you and tell you, we'll have a small reconciliation problem in this particular account you're using, please wire to this other email. The first thing that the accountant will do is to look at the email. Once they see the email ID is the same as what was there, without knowing that the letter A has been changed, and if they don't take care, again, that is something that my predecessors who had presented me before misstated. The weakest link is the human being. Without taking care to possibly call the person and ask, a simple call would help there. Have you changed your bank account, and so on and so forth. So if the person is in a hurry, they would send that money. So again, in a simpler way, that is the man in the middle that we're talking about. I don't know whether there is any comment before I proceed. Hello? Hello?
Yes, John.
Any comment before I proceed? I get the feeling that I'd possibly be talking to myself.
Well, I think so far so good. We can check on the questions if not questions.
Okay.
Yeah. But
right.
You can maximize on the screen itself for the PowerPoint presentation. Yes.
Sorry. Good. So
that's better.
Okay. So what I'll do is, as I stated, I work for Minet Insurance Brokers, and we've got a partnership with Finet. In the partnership, we jointly provide solutions. So what I'll do is I'll just briefly take you through Minet. Minet is an insurance broker in the market with over 70 years presence in Kenya. Started off in 1949 as JH Minet, that is from UK. In 1998, it changed to Aon when Aon acquired majority shareholding, and it changed to Aon Minet. Then in 2017, it went back to Minet after it again had changed ownership. In terms of services that we do provide, we are a broker. We do medical insurance, we do general insurance, we do consulting, we do life insurance. And if you know the teachers in this particular country, we insure all the teachers in this country. That is about 265,000 plus their families. We insure about 1.2 million lives for the teachers as well as the police. So that just generally to show you who we are. And straight in Africa, we are present in those countries that are there. So that, for instance, if anybody has businesses out of Kenya, we can be able to follow them and provide solutions in those particular countries. So those are the countries that we operate in, the 10 African countries. Then I would go straight into the subject. Because my previous presenters have actually defined cyber risk and so on, but I'll go through it briefly. Cyber risk is any financial loss or disruption to an organization following breach of the IT systems, which is something that we've looked at. So what we are saying here is the IT systems and organizations today, including the Saccos, rely on IT systems. And when you rely on IT systems, the criminals out there are out to make sure that either they make money from you by getting into the system, they can transfer the money, they can encrypt your data and ask you for ransomware. So having created that, that is the cyber risk. This could be intentional, it could be accidental from persons inside. And what is a cyber attack? A cyber attack is either malicious or deliberate attempt by an individual to steal data from organization, destroy data, or hold them hostage. And normally this data is in form of IT assets. Normally this is unauthorized access to the IT systems in an organization. So that is what is defined as an attack, a cyber attack. So there are several ways of cyber attack, which I think my previous presenters have talked about. There's phishing, malware, ransomware, money in the middle, which I've explained. Denial of service. This is a situation where the IT gateway is blocked and you cannot be able to send email. Business email compromise, I've talked about, insider threat. So those are some of the risks or the cyber attack, how it normally happens. So I'll not give the definitions because my previous presenters had given definitions, but if maybe I would get it from the audience. Do you need me to go through the definitions? Hello? I want to just go over them briefly without giving the presentation, the definitions because of time. So phishing is basically a situation where an email is sent or information is sent. It appears to. Can somebody mute the background, please? A situation where an email could be sent with a view to harvesting data or login credentials from a computer or a network. So that is phishing. And normally what happens is they would be able to steal data using phishing. Then malware or ransomware is a scenario where a virus is sent into a computer, and once the virus has been sent to the computer, it disrupts or blocks the system. They can actually be able to encrypt data so that then they ask you for ransomware. In that scenario, let me give a practical scenario. Assuming you are a Sacco and malware has been sent, it has corrupted your data, you cannot be able to access your information. What the attackers will do, they will tell you that for us to be able to allow you access, could you pay us this amount of money? In a lot of cases, assuming that happens to a Sacco one, they don't even know how to start negotiating. But insurers do provide you with insurance that takes care of the ransomware. So that, for instance, if your data is encrypted, Then the insurance company has specialists, just like if we want to go on cover, we'll involve the previous speakers to do for us assessment. In the event that you've been attacked and your data has been encrypted, we then are able to reach out to the persons who would be able to negotiate with the attackers, so that then they can decrypt the data. And normally a payment is made, and that payment is made by the insurance company if you have an insurance policy. So all you need to pay is insurance premium to protect yourself. So this has happened to a lot of organizations, and I'm sure we are all aware of the recent attacks that did happen on the Citizen, a couple of banks locally, and there was also Naivas. Then money in the middle, I think I've explained this. I don't need to go over it again. But generally, again, this is a way of somebody coming in to either steal the data or to divert traffic. The denial of service attack. This is a situation where I'm sure you've seen in certain scenarios where emails are inordinately slow. What they do is they bombard your bandwidth with a lot of emails, so that you cannot be able to send legitimate emails. So once they've filled up your space, you cannot be able to send emails. They then contact you and they can tell you, pay us this much so that we can release your bandwidth. Business email compromise, I think that's what I've talked about, where there is impersonation. A classical example, I think, happened in New York the other week, and it's all in the papers. What happened is a CEO had gone on holiday. So somebody sent an email purporting to be the CEO, and certain amounts of money were supposed to be sent, and design for a particular contract was changed. So then insider threat, that is now the individuals that are inside the organization. This was properly explained. For instance, you could have, say you are a Sacco and one of your staff members is disgruntled. He can actually even open a third-party email that comes in that carries a virus, either so that he can revenge on the organization. So basically, what is cybersecurity is the process and controls to protect IC system network against infiltration. That is basically cybersecurity, which the previous speakers have talked about, to protect the entire IT ecosystem, to make sure that there is no infiltration from outside. So recent attacks, I'll just go over that very quickly. American Airlines were attacked recently. Norwegian government was attacked just the same way as Kenyan government was attacked. You look at Movit, they were attacked in a situation where, for instance, the ransomware was asked for and they had to pay. And also you look at the Black Hat, that again was attacked and they had to pay about 4.5 in ransomware. Suzuki, an international company, was attacked. They lost production of 20,000 vehicles. The American embassy was attacked and data was given out. T-Mobile, again, that was attacked and they lost a lot of data. Pizza Hut was attacked in 2023 April. Data sent out. Twitter, that again was attacked. MSI also was attacked and data went out and they paid all that. Personal data was lost. Singtel, about 129,000. Uber was attacked. Again, they lost data. Personal data was attacked. But here at home, Toyota was attacked, Cisco was attacked, Morgan Stanley, Naivas was even in the papers, Furniture Place, KA, Jubilee. So these attacks are real, and what makes it to be reported are just a fraction. A lot of the attacks never make to be reported. So having said that, what is the cost? The cost is very expensive and people do not admit. And I can tell you, let me just go back to this slide. I don't know whether you are seeing this particular bank. Are you seeing this particular bank? There is this bank that was gracious enough, that is NCBA, to admit that they were attacked. And normally if you're a bank you want to access and you're being told the bank is under maintenance, I can tell you that 70% the bank has been attacked. They would not just tell you that they've been attacked, but they will always say that they are under maintenance. So then very quickly on the data, I think this has been captured in the world. We are 51, number 51 out of 182 countries in terms of index. In Africa, we are number 5. I think Nigeria, South Africa, and ourselves, we are constantly being attacked. So that is just to show the Kenya Global Index. Then if you look at the security situation, what are the general security indicators? The cyber security policy development, that is the development. You find that Kenya, we have the laws that have been put in place. We do cyber threat analysis through the data commissioner. We do a bit of education, and we contribute to global security. That is as Kenya and South Africa. So if you look at Kenya National Cyber Security Strategy, the government of Kenya has a security strategy. And what are these pillars for security strategy? The cyber security governance, which is there, the cyber security policies, laws, regulations, and standards. And if you're all aware, and the previous speaker talked about the Data Protection Act 2019, which has basically 3 pillars. It governs how you collect the information, how you use the information, and how you finally dispose the information. And you need to have the consent of the data subject. Data subject is the person whose information is being harvested. And the penalties are very stiff, by the way. It's 5 million shillings in the event that you do not follow any of those processes. And the data commissioner expects organizations to appoint chief information officers. So that is something that is dragging. I think there was one case where a company in Nakuru was taken to court and they paid about I think it was about 3 million shillings. They have not caught up with the organization simply because the appointment of data commissioner took a bit of time. So again, critical information structure protection, those are the strategies in Kenya. We have capability, cybersecurity capability building. The office interacted with them. They're putting up teams, and very soon they'll be able to follow up organizations, and they will be very, very strict. So then cybersecurity, cyber risk, and cybercrime management, and cooperation and collaboration, both locally with Interpol and so on and so forth. So that is the Kenyan strategy. So in terms of cyber threat, if you look at the detection, what has been there, it continuously goes up. If you started in 2017, there were only 20 million threats. By 2021, now about 160 million threats. So this is real in Kenya, and we need to have that. So what is the legal framework or the legal environment that that points to the need of cybersecurity? One, the Bill of Rights, article number 31 gives the privacy, and the Constitution gives privacy, and your privacy should not be breached. Again, Access to Information Act 2016. This gives us the right to access information, and with the limitations in terms of law. And then Data Protection Act, this is an act that was passed in 2019. And as I've said, it has got 3 pillars, regulates how data is collected, stored, and used. And as my previous presenter said, it doesn't regulate how data is disposed. Then there's a general data protection regulation. This is something by the European Union, and we are a signatory to it. Again, it is very stringent, and it applies to the standards of Europe, applies in a situation where you are dealing with subjects in Europe. Then the Computer and Cyber Crime Bill of 2017. Again, this talks about how to investigate, prosecute computer crimes. So that is the legal basis on which we do operate when we look at the cyber liability. Now, Once you've said that, the question is, who should be concerned about cyber risk from an organization point of view? We submit that the technology department should be concerned about cyber security. They should do their part by updating, giving updates, making sure the audits are done, mitigation plans are put in place. HR should also play their part. The human element of cyber and all others should also play their part on this. Then straight away, I don't know, it's not moving. Now, I want to look at, having talked about that generally, from an insurance point of view, you cannot be talking of only one risk. You should be able to enlighten the subjects of the number of exposures that are there. So if you look at a typical Sacco, and we have two types of Sacco, the deposit collecting and the non-deposit collecting. But either way, one of the risks that they are faced with is the directors and officers liability. A lot of these Saccos, they are run by directors and senior members of the organization. There are certain decisions that they make which could then impute liability either onto themselves as persons or onto the organization. Let me give you an example on this. What does directors and officers liability means? It means that an officer of an organization, when they make a decision on behalf of the organization, and that decision subsequently turns out not to be the correct decision and liability passes on to the organization, then they would be held personally liable. I'll give you an example from my experience, because in the public domain. About 6 or 7 years ago, the persons who provide catering services at the airport, they're called the nurse. That is when they were now taking over from the foreign companies that were providing catering services. So what they did is they engaged quite a number of persons to prepare food. Somebody's raised their hand. Maybe can I? Somebody has raised their hand. Hello, somebody has raised their hand.
Peter, do you have a question?
Shall I proceed?
Yes, you can proceed. I think Peter's hand has been up for the entire meeting, and I think it's lowered. Yeah,
Okay.
just proceed, please.
Okay, so just to explain that quickly so that I can run over this before. Now, so what happened is the persons who are supposed to provide services engage temporary services of employees to prepare food and then supply to the air side so that they are loaded onto the planes. So what happened is finally they were told you'll be given this contract, so you need to absorb these people on a permanent basis. So what they did, because food is sensitive, they did the tests to make sure that everybody else who's preparing food was healthy. Then on the basis of that, they took on quite a number of the temporary staff. So one particular lady who was very good was not taken. So she passed by the HR office just for a chit chat, and I was asking, why is it that I've not been taken on board? So the HR carelessly made a mistake. Uko na mdudu. Meaning that she was HIV positive based on the tests. This lady took a nurse to court, and it's something I would invite you people to Google. They are my clients, and because it's an open domain, I can talk about it. If it was not, I would never talk about it. So I think she was eventually paid about 4.5 million. We had that policy, and this covered them. So to the directors and the senior officers of the Saccos, it is important that you protect yourselves against the decisions that you make. Some of these decisions you make at a time when that possibly would be the only option. Then employer's liability, if employees get injured, that will be taken care of. Public liability, you get a lot of people coming to your banking halls or associating with you. If they get injured there, they'll sue you. Statutory insurance like the WIBA, the employees should be covered. That is as per law. Then you go to crime. You have inside theft by the staff, where the staff could possibly steal money by playing around with the accounts. That there's a cover called banker's blanket bond or corporate armor that should take care of all that. So if you have staff who are stealing from you, that should be taken care of, either people stealing from outside or from inside. Then you have the assets, the buildings that you have, the motor vehicles, then employee benefits, where our partners are experts in it. Employee benefits, that is group life, and so on. Health care, that should be taken care of. Then we have what are called the emerging risks. The ones I've talked about are traditional risks that should basically be taken care of as a Sacco. And normally what happens is, a lot of times entities do not look at insurance to protect themselves, because without insurance, you're faced with potential liabilities and possibly even damage or loss to your assets. Then you have the emerging risks. What are these emerging risks? Because we have to do business using IT platform. And one of the biggest challenges for Sacco competition from the tech space. So they have to move quickly to get also to digitize. And as they move to get to digitize, there comes the problem of cyber liability or cyber security. Then you have employment practice with the new laws being passed on employment. You cannot just sack somebody. If you sack them, they take you to court. We have a cover. There is a cover for that. Environmental liability. Today, people are talking about green. There are a lot of implications. Like, for instance, in Sacco, you could have a scenario where you provide loans, and you provide loans to people where they're supposed to repay you back, but they're not complied with environmental liability, and government might just withdraw permits for those projects. So now, having said that, there is the traditional insurance and the cyber insurance. A lot of people do say that as long as they have cover, they think that they have also cyber insurance. So there's a matrix here. In the interest of time, I may not go into all the details, but we'll just say, for instance, if you look at property, that should be covered. General liability, I've talked about. Crime, I've talked about. Kidnap and ransom. The other day, we almost had what was scary. We were thinking it was a kidnap and ransom when Rai was kidnapped. Then errors and omission, that is professional indemnity, and then we have cyber. So the matrix indicates what is covered. Like, for instance, if you look at physical damage to data only, you can cover it under property. You can also cover it under crime. So hacking, what can be covered, and all that is stated there. So then, why are standard policies, insurance policies, not enough? The standard insurance policies would only possibly cover general liability, that is bodily injury and property damage, and not economic loss. Then you have professional indemnity or errors and omission. They would cover a bit of economic loss, but they have exclusions. Directors and officers' liabilities that I did talk about, they would cover possibly management lapses in terms of decision making, but they would not cover the hackings or the breaches. Then this is just a summary of what my friends have talked about. Cyber attacks, we have malware, we have phishing, we have password attack, man in the middle, denial of service, sniffing and spoofing. Sorry. Apologies. Sorry, my apologies for that. So that had been talked about. So I now go straight to cyber security insurance. What exactly is covered? We've talked about all that. We've talked about the preparation in terms of what do you need to do, how are the attacks coming in. So what is this cyber security insurance? My immediate comment before I go into it is a situation where the previous presenter has been able to take care of all the risks that are there in terms of human error, and so on. But the residual risk, or there's still a chance that a client will be attacked. So that after the attack, what happens? That is now where the cyber insurance comes in. And cyber risk is a risk of financial loss. You have financial loss, somebody gets into there, you have to pay him, disruption of business, damage to reputation of an organization, or failure of information systems. So that is basically the way we define cyber risk. But then what is cyber insurance? This is a cover that would hedge your business against the effects, the devastating effects of the cyber crime, like for instance, ransomware, denial of attack, then you have disruption of the systems. And what happens when you have a cyber attack? I'll just give you the landscape of the cyber liability risks. You have what happens when you have attack. It could be data theft, it could be liabilities, where, for instance, we have the payment card industry, where you as a Sacco, you have cards, you have details of somebody, personal identifiable information that is harvested possibly by the hackers. And this information, the hackers are able to sell it to what is called the dark web. The dark web is where all the crimes are undertaken, particularly the cyber crimes. And maybe for your information, in the dark web, you can actually even buy a gun from the dark web. Yeah. So once they harvest that personal identifiable information, what they do, they take it to the dark web, and the people can use it to access your account. So now the insurance policy that you take, which is a cyber risk insurance, what it would do is what is called ID monitoring. Assuming you lose about 1,000 credit cards. Now, you as a Sacco, maybe one particular Sacco, you don't even know what to do. These 1,000 credit cards can surface anywhere. Somebody can go and use them online and so on. Now, if you have a cyber liability insurance, what would happen is they will do what is called notification. The law requires that the data subjects or the owners of these cards are notified. You, as a Sacco, you may not have the capacity or ability to notify these people. And if you don't notify them, you can be sued you can be held liable and be sued. So what happens is the insurance policy, what it would do immediately, there's theft, there's hacking or breach of the systems, there will be an immediate response. So what happens is once they trigger a response, we have partners who immediately would deploy systems to separate the systems that have been attacked and undertake forensic audits and notify the data subjects that we've been hacked. I think you saw that with Nakumat. They notified people publicly, and some SMSs were sent and so on. So then the other aspect of cyber risk would be extortion. Extortion is a situation where they have encrypted your data. They ask for money. A local example, which I think, if you can remember, I think that's about 5 or 6 years ago. There was a publication in the newspaper purporting that the health of the MPs, our MPs, they had certain type of diseases. What had happened is the hackers had hacked into the database of certain hospitals, and they kept on extorting the hospitals. If you don't give us this, we'll give this information and so on. Like, health records are very sensitive. So what happened is when the persons who are handling the claim looked at Kenyans, the good thing with us Kenyans, we have a very short memory. After they had paid once or twice, then they told them, okay, you can publish. It was published and everybody forgot. So that is extortion. The network, if it is damaged, obviously when you're attacked, your network goes down, it cannot operate. Then again, the service providers would come in to help you bring back your network. Denial of access, of service, I talked about that again. They would be able to come in and help you on that. Then, what are the key drivers of cyber risks? Digitization is taking place. There's competition. People are looking for quality. People are looking for efficiencies. So on the extreme, on my extreme left, we have technological drivers. These are the drivers that are driving cyber risks. Big data analytics. Today, big data is the key thing. If you have data, you mine your data, you're able to do business. Even you as Sacco, I'm sure if you look at the data by SASA, we are able to bank these people like I think my previous presenters quoted about Saccos affecting lives of 500,000 people. And if you're a Sacco and you ask yourself, how many lives am I affecting by looking at the big data? You can then, this can change your direction, the way you think. Then AI, then inversion technology, social media, everybody's on the social media, cloud computing is there, mobility is there, Internet of Things. So there's automation, and then there's connectivity. So all these are leading to increased use of technology. And therein lies the risk that is there. There's risk of material damage. If you're attacked, then there's a risk of business interruption. When you're off, for instance, take a typical example of a Sacco. Say on the 28th of the month, you need to pay salaries, assuming a Sacco that pays salary. Elizabeth, could you mute, please? So, assuming you're a Sacco and you need to pay salaries on the 28th of the month, then your system has been hacked, there's denial of service, or your data has been encrypted. What does that do to you? Immediately there's business interruption. And when there's business interruption, there's disquiet from the clients. And if you have this kind of policy, the insurers will be able to deploy their experts to come in, help you negotiate with those people if there's any money they need, or if you had done your cyber maturity assessment properly and your cyber posture is correct, possibly you would have been advised that you need to have a backup that you can quickly use. And that is how, for instance, insurance helps, because the moment we now link up with the service providers, there are certain standards, basic standards that should be there. So if you have those, it's possible that you can get back to your operations. If you have a BCP, what's called business continuity plan, these are things that will be discussed by the service providers, and we also are able to discuss that. So if you have a BCP, you'll be able to resort to the BCP, as opposed to a situation where you don't have the insurance, you don't have the BCP. So those are some of the drivers. Then now I want to look at the actual insurance. We have talked about all that. The insurance that we do provide has two sections. First party, for instance, is now, let's talk about the Sacco itself. If there's an attack, a successful attack, then the Sacco is the first party. There's something called event management expense. This event management expense would mean the initial response by the insurance company. You've been attacked, you don't know what to do, you can't turn on your computers, then experts would then be called in. Normally the response is within 24 hours. So once the experts come in, they would look at it, try and do forensic investigations to look at the point of entry, or to look at exactly what is happening. Once they've understood what is happening, in the meantime, they notify your customers. They do the public relations so that the crisis management, like it happened with Nakumat, they admitted, yes, we were hacked, but we are in the process of doing what we have to do. Then there's the business interruption. If you have been hacked as a first party and you lose business because you cannot transact your business, then that income that you lost would be refunded to you. If you've been hacked, again, this is to the first party, and there is extortion that has been hacked. That extortion or ransom will be paid by the insurance company on your behalf. Then you have data reconstruction. You would have scenarios where you've been hacked to an extent that your data has to be reconstructed. The cost of that data reconstruction will be taken care of. So those 5 critical areas are what the policy is covering. So for instance, let's bring it home to the Sacco. Let's take a typical Sacco. On Monday morning, you come to the office, you cannot turn on your computers, you've been hacked. So what happens? You report to your insurance broker or agent or insurance company. Once you report, and in the policy, when it's been issued, just like the medical insurance, there's the emergency line that you need to call. The moment you call that emergency line, then they swing into action. So the most important thing there, when they swing into action, they start forensic investigations, they manage the event, they do the crisis. Because as a Sacco, if people know that you've been hacked and there's nothing that is happening, they can withdraw their deposits, and that is basically what you're doing. So then business interruption, then they do an assessment, how much business did you lose because of this? Or alternatively, you've been asked as a Sacco, pay us this so that we can release this data, or we have your data, we can sell it to the competitor if you don't give us this money. So they'll give that money that the data is released, or you have to reconstruct your data. That is first party. Then, yes, a question? Hello, a question or something? Okay. Am I talking to myself, team?
I think you are quite understandable. It's
Okay.
the meeting is up. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
So then I've covered about first party, then I go to third party. In third party, I have kept my data, for instance, with Sacco. And then it's been hacked and it's been taken out there. It's in the open, and I get somebody having my data. I'll sue the organization. So that is liability to the third party. So what will happen is I'll sue the organization. A typical example is here in Kenya. There's a lawyer called it's called Muller, Grand Muller. I'm sure you all know him. So what happened with Grand Muller? Because he used to get a lot of a lot of invitations on SMS and so on. He turned around and sued Safaricom, that Safaricom has released his data, or the data that Safaricom has given it out, and people are calling him. They want to give him Fuliza and add him to Chamas and so on. So as a third party, if your privacy right has been breached because of a data breach, then you can sue an organization. Media intellectual property we could be holding certain documents, for instance, and that has been breached as a third party, then you can sue. Then, as an organization, you are expected to implement certain policies and procedures and security policies. This is all in the Data Protection, the Data Protection Act of 2019. Failure to implement that, yeah, or maintain or enforce reasonable security, you could be sued for that. Yeah. Then unfair business or disruptive law practices, for instance, you could be sued for that. Then regulatory action. The data commissioner might decide we are fining you because you've not implemented this, or the data is supposed to be stored in this particular manner, disposed in this particular manner, or used for this particular purpose, but because somebody has accessed your system, has used the data for different purposes. So that is the way the cover is structured. And by the way, the suits, you could even have a class suit, for instance, where data has been lost, maybe 1,000 people, and all these 1,000 people take you to court. And maybe for your information, if you have 1,000 cases to defend, just to hire an advocate to file in an affidavit, reply in affidavit, you need about 55,000 shillings. So if there are 1,000 cases, you need about 55 million shillings just for privacy invasion, where you lost data and people have decided to sue you. So with 55,000 shilling, a million, if you are to pay that legal cost, and then there's a possibility that you might lose the case. And if you lose the case, for each of those, the fines are prescribed, and possibly you're given a fine of maybe 200,000 shillings for each case. You're staring at 200 million shillings, 255 million shillings, which I'm very sure not very many Saccos or even banks can absorb that from their books. They really need, they will struggle. They could even go under. So this is a very important cover for you guys. So next, just to summarize that, we've talked about first party, that's a financial loss. And if you look at, I'll use the cursor so that you see, we've talked about first party, the financial loss. There's a PR I've talked about, response and continuity cost, which I've talked about. They're on site to make sure that you come back to business as fast as possible. Immediate and extended revenue losses, that would be compensated for. Restoration expenses would be taken, defense costs if somebody sues you. Then third party, where you have that, there's civil penalties, which I've talked about, awards, consequential revenue losses, restoration expenses, then physical damage. There are certain situations where you have physical damage as a result of hacking. Possibly you have a door that uses that closes automatically. It's been hacked. People are trapped in there, or the door cannot be controlled. It hits somebody. Those should all be covered under the tangible ones, where you have physical loss. So then, what are the reasons why clients do not look at cyber insurance? There's an assumption that the covers exist. They tell you I have insurances, yet they don't know what kind of insurances they have. And I know in this market, there are people who say that they have cyber insurance. And if you look at even in insurance, there's something called the security of the insurance company that is giving out the cover. How credible is this insurance company? Do they have reinsurances? If you look at the insurance companies that they purport that they can give those covers, I can tell you there is no, it's very difficult to get this particular cover. And for us, in partnership with Finet, we are using foreign we are using foreign reinsurers and securities to be able to give this cover. So it's a cover that we are tailor-making for your sector, but it's a cover that is being driven outside of this country. It's not a cover that is here. So there's that assumption of cover. There's false sense of security. Somebody tells you my computer system cannot be hacked. Yeah. Somebody tells you cyber cannot be insured. Some people do not just understand the coverage. At least having taken us through this, we have an idea, and I'm happy that the previous speakers were able to break it down, and now you see what it means. Some say cost is too high, yeah, and I've just demonstrated that you could have a class action where your cost will be around 255 million. So if you look at 255 million, would you say that the cost of insurance is high? My guess is as good as yours. So those are some of the reasons that people do not want to take insurance. But there are also personal reasons. People thrive in a situation where there is disorder also. So what are the sources of breach? There's a graph here, and I can tell you, if you look at the graph, internal and accidental, a whole 18%. So this calls for education so that the employees of organizations are educated. They know that when an email comes in, you don't just click on the email. It could be a suspicious email, posing as a legitimate email. Then they should be trained that you do what is called it's called MFA, that is multi-factor authentication. You have 2 or 3 passwords. If you want to get into the system, you log in, then a message is sent to your phone. Based on that message, again, you input that data. Such simple procedures would ensure that the 18% goes down. And also to the insurers, if you are able to demonstrate to us that you've implemented most of this mandatory or basic security requirements, the premium that you'd be paying is very below. Then internal malice, again, this is employee education. Explain to the employees the importance of the IT system. If the IT system is hacked, what is the cost implication? Then you bring this one down. Then internal unknown, these are that are not known, those are 6%, then 7%, and then the external. Now, the external, that is where now we really need to rely on the experts to make sure that we bring this down. So looking at this is pretty much the profile of most organizations, even the Saccos themselves. So then I think I've explained this, but this should just be so that we remind ourselves where we have first party event. So what happens is notification costs. I've talked about restoration of services, legal assistance in the event that somebody takes you to court, forensic investigation, cost of hiring PR firm. I've talked about that. Cyber extortion. This is where there's extortion. The insurance will come in to investigate. Terminate an extortion. Terminating an extortion means that possibly because you did proper cyber hygiene, you have a backup. They'll tell the persons, the kidnappers, you can go away. We don't need that. Data restoration, you would work with the experts to ensure that you're able to restore your data. Business interruption, the losses that you suffered as a result of interruption will be paid for. So third parties, other economic loss suffered by others, just to make sure that it goes in properly. Network security liability, you could have a situation where your network becomes a gateway to somebody else. For instance, let's take a typical example. You are a small Sacco, you do not have very good security, you do not have very good security protection, or your cyber maturity is still low. So what would happen is attackers know that you deal possibly with a bank. So you are the weak point, which is now the small Sacco, where the thieves would go into maybe a bank or an insurance company and so on. So somebody can turn around and tell you that when the forensic audit has been done, yours was the weak point, then you can be sued. So if you're sued, then that cover comes into place. So there's privacy liability, which I've talked about, regulation liability, I've talked about that. Then you could have slander. Somebody could get information, take it out there, defame the person who is there, that they sue you, or you could have infringement of copyrights, foreign confidential documents, which are then taken out there. So why standard liability covers are not, are not sufficient? We talked about that. Then why are cyber crimes increasing? There is motivation to the hackers or to the attackers, the potential financial gain that they could make. For instance, if assume that they block a bank towards the end of the month, or the bank are doing a very serious transaction, they can ask the bank to pay them off 20 million, 30 million shillings. Yeah. And again, that is a motivation for hackers why the cyber crimes are increasing. And for instance, in the Saccos, it was in the papers. I think the Saccos are losing, the figures were given what Saccos are losing, but they can't come out and talk about it. The methods of attack has shown. We have dog employees who can be compromised. Outsourcing is also another issue. For instance, you may not have all the services within and outsource, and when you outsource, that becomes a big point. So that is the increase. So I think the previous persons that talked about cyber security assessment, this is a very detailed one. If they had not talked about it, I would have taken us through them by look at the application, the infrastructure, the cloud. You look at simulation, we look at social engineering, vulnerability scanning. So this is how the crimes occur, which I think has been captured by the previous presenter, the malware. the theft of money, you have money collection, the way all that happens, the harvesting of credentials, that is a personal identifiable information. Then this is a graphic presentation. There is what it covers. It covers electronic theft. It also covers network damage. It covers denial of service. It covers data theft. It covers extortion. So in a nutshell, that is what the insurance policy covers. Then when you go again, just to make sure that we understand this thing properly, we have the first party that we talked about, the disaster recovery, and we have business interruption. So as part of the process, together with the partners who do security testing, you need to do business continuity planning so that at least as you even do your business, you have some backup so that if you have some backup so that if you are attacked, you can be able to get back to business as the other issues are being taken in, being sorted out. So that is there. Then you look at the business continuity. That is the importance of having this the cyber insurance. Then first party commercial property. Then you have third party general liability. So all those are the coverages that are there. So again, what is basically covered? Insured event, any data breach, cyber incident, third party crime, extortion. What is data breach? That is either accidental or malicious. Then you go to third party claim, any damage or assertion by third party against insurers, damage insurers for damages or enforcement of rights. This will be taken in court. Cyber extortion, again, where money is needed by the bad actors. Then cyber liability data breach response. We talked about this. You've been attacked. How is the policy responding? Notifying the people who are there, forensic investigation immediately, restoration of data, analyzing the business interruption, extortion if it is there. The moment you understand those three, that should be good. Personal, that is personal card information, payment card industry, it's a problem. When you've been hacked and the cards, these people have very strict rules and they recommend the way you're supposed to do your data security standards. Then your reputation, if you are attacked, your reputation will be at stake. So to deal with your reputation, you need a professional PI firm who will be supplied by the insurers to be able to manage the expectations. Like for instance, all of us cannot even.
John,
Yes.
you with us? I believe we are all in. Maybe you can summarize for the interest of time. We are past time with 20 minutes, 26 minutes actually.
Okay. So I think there is nothing else. This is just to enhance, to reinforce what is there. Again, just to reinforce confidentiality and privacy, third party, just to reinforce. Then this is very important. The reason why Saccos have not been able to get coverage is that this minimum security requirements, some of them do not have them. One of the things that we've done with our partners is to come up with basic minimum security requirements because they are very onerous. We are trying to simplify them. Something like frequent backup, password management. You can find situations where people never change their passwords. The software updates or patchments, antivirus, firewall, vulnerability scanning, multi-factor authentication of password. So this, once we agree, and these are very basic requirements, then we can be able to get the coverage. So how do we prevent attack? Education to the employees. The IT systems have to be robust, and you've got to make sure that there's the latest security patchments. Then emails, you should agree on email protocol, not just every either email is opened. Then you do regular vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. That is to look at the system, see what is there. Then employee access, that should be classified, then employee training, password should be changed. Yeah, there should be periodic check of employees login and so on. So financial proposal, sorry, I've left out financial proposal. This is for engagement. So once you engage, then you will know how much would this cost and how you implement it. So very finally, once we all do all that, formal approval for placement of risk, then training. I think that marks the end of my presentation. I would be willing to take questions.
Thank you, John, for elaborate presentation, quite into details, and it has really affirmed what the earlier presenters also mentioned. I think we'll take questions, and we can drop the questions on the chat board. Maybe someone can raise their hands in case there's a question. But then again, all these business placements, we work together in partnership with Minet Kenya to ensure that our clientele are well covered all around. As you can see, it's quite into details. And just so to say, at Finet agency, we in the space of insurance, and we do group life insurance, credit life insurance, pensions, annuities, and drawdowns, private motor vehicle at well-negotiated rates, benevolent products, of which we've partnered with one of the great directors in the market to ensure that we bring this business of benevolent at some affordable rates. We'll share this one with our clients on via emails and our social medias, so you can stay tuned to such kind of posts. We also work on post-retirement medical schemes for the retirees. We have education policies in life, fire-related, contractors, all risk, travel insurance for those who want to tour the world or run business activities, and the Work Injury Benefit Act to close also endowment. So feel free to reach to us for us to work together and protect what matters. That is our hashtag, protect what matters. The business for money management and the loans is quite crucial to most Saccos and financial institutions. We are glad to have you on board. We really appreciate you. And we are looking forward to have a seat with you to discuss, draw, map the risks, draw a plan on how to mitigate, and give you the best product at affordable premiums. All these are well negotiated. As we take questions, please, you can ask questions on the chat board, or you can raise up your hand so that we respond to such. Any questions before we close on it? Well, it seems there are no questions, or either our participants are engaged in other activities. So thank you, John Gangla. We thank you, Michael Juma. We thank you, Wilson Gitau, for your presentations. We thank you, our participants, for joining in, and we also appreciate your remarks, the questions you've asked on board. We really responded to the best possible way we could. If you're not satisfied, still reach out. You have our contacts, the telephone, the emails, and we'll share the notes with you via email for further internalization and further engagement. If nothing much coming on board, I think we'll end it there. We'll call it a day, and really appreciate. Looking forward to meet everybody next time in a different forum. So stay tuned for further engagements. You're going to have quite a lot through the year and throughout the business that we'll be conducting. We really appreciate, and have a blessed afternoon and a blessed weekend ahead. God bless you all. We are free to exit the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you all.